Rome, 101 BC. On the Bestias bridge, spanning the Tiber River, a man kneels on the freezing stone. He is naked, his body writhing in a rhythmic tremor, not from the winter chill, but from the realization of the nightmare awaiting him. He has committed the ultimate Roman sin, parricide. In front of him, executioners drag forward a heavy leather sack. It is not empty. Inside, a starving dog, an aggressive rooster, a frantic monkey, and a venomous viper coil against one another in a claustrophobic frenzy. Before the man is cast in, they beat his back with blood-red rods until his flesh is a shredded canvas of crimson. They shove him into the sack with the beasts and sew it shut while his screams echo off the water. This was Poena Cullei, the punishment of the sack. As Cicero explained the grim logic, the killer of his own blood must be denied the sky, the sun, the water, and the earth. He who destroyed the source of his life must be stripped of every element that sustains it. This is not a dark fable, it is a reality etched into the 12 Tables, Rome's oldest legal code, dating back to 450 BC. But the sack was merely the overture. Ancient Rome perfected 12 distinct methods of torture designed to systematically dismantle the body, the spirit, and the very memory of its victims. We aren't talking about the gladiators or the beasts of the Colosseum you've seen in movies. Today, we witness what Rome did in the shadows and the public squares, the punishments reserved for traitors, deserters, parricides, and the impure Vestal Virgins. This is the history your teachers skipped and what Hollywood lacks the spine to show. I am script historians, and here there is no censorship, only the raw, visceral truth Rome wanted the world to forget. If you want history without filters, hit subscribe now, because what comes next makes the arena look like a children's show. We begin with how Rome dealt with those who betrayed the state. In the very heart of the city, on a cliffside where the screams of the falling could be heard by senators, in mid-debate stood the Tarpeian Rock. Located on the southern summit of the Capitoline Hill, this precipice rose 80 feet above a jagged graveyard of stones. For a Roman, there was no more symbolic place to die. The rock was named after Tarpeia, in a young woman who allegedly opened Rome's gates to the Sabines in exchange for the gold on their arms, meaning their bracelets. Instead, the soldiers crushed her under their heavy shields, teaching Rome its first lesson on the price of treachery. From that moment on, the rock became the designated execution site for internal traitors. The procedure was brutally minimalist. The condemned was led to the edge, while crowds gathered below. Without a word or ceremony, they were hurled into the void. The symbolism was devastating and deliberate. To be thrown from the Tarpeian Rock was to be literally cast out from the center of Roman society. Their shattered bodies were left where citizens could see them, often denied a proper burial, which meant their souls were condemned to wander without peace in the afterlife. The historical records show that in 384 BC, Marcus Manlius Capitolinus, a war hero who had once saved the city, was hurled from this very cliff after being accused of seeking kingship. Archaeological evidence suggests the area below the cliff accumulated so many remains over the centuries that periodic clearings were required. Emperor Claudius reportedly attended these executions personally, taking a perverse interest in examining the trajectory and impact of the bodies. The Tarpeian Rock stood as a jagged reminder that in Rome, the distance between the height of power and a broken corpse was only 80 feet. While the cliff was for citizens, Rome devised something far more prolonged for those it deemed less than human. Crucifixion was so barbaric that Roman citizens were legally exempt from it. It was reserved for slaves, pirates, and enemies of the state. The condemned would first be stripped and scourged with a flagrum, a whip embedded with bone and metal, until their back was a mess of exposed muscle and bone. They were then forced to carry the patibulum, the crossbeam, through the streets while crowds jeered and spat. At the sight, executioners would drive iron spikes through the wrists and feet. Death came through a slow, agonizing cycle of exhaustion and asphyxiation. To breathe, the victim had to push up on their nailed feet, a movement that sent lightning bolts of pain through their nervous system. This could last for days under the blistering sun. The most infamous mass crucifixion occurred in 71 BC, following the defeat of Spartacus's slave rebellion. General Marcus Licinius Crassus ordered 6,000 rebels to be crucified along the Appian Way, the main road from Rome to Capua. For 125 miles, travellers were forced to walk past thousands of dying men. To ensure the message lasted, Roman executioners used a small seat called a sedile to support the victim's weight, just enough to prevent them from suffocating too quickly, extending the torment. Plutarch recorded that the bodies were left to rot on their crosses long after they died, serving as a gruesome wallpaper for the Roman countryside. The message was unmistakable. This is what happens when you challenge the eagle of Rome. Crucifixion wasn't just an execution, it was a state-sponsored billboard of terror that utilized the human body as its medium. Rome's cruelty wasn't just directed outward, it was a tool used to forge the world's most disciplined army. When a legion showed cowardice or mutiny, they faced decimation, a word derived from the Latin decima, meaning to take a tenth. The process was a psychological masterpiece of horror. A disgraced unit was divided into groups of 10. These were men who had bled together, shared rations, and protected each other's lives for years. Each group was forced to draw lots. The man who drew the short straw was not executed by a professional killer. He was beaten to death by the other 9 members of his tent group. They used clubs and stones, raining blows upon their friend until his skull shattered. To survive was almost as bad as to die, as the remaining soldiers were forced to camp outside the safety of the fortifications and eat raw barley like animals. The most famous instance of this occurred in 71 BC, when Crassus revived the ancient punishment to motivate his troops against Spartacus. 500 men died at the hands of their best friends that day, their screams echoing across the camp as a reminder that the general was more dangerous than the enemy. The military writer Frontinus noted that units which survived decimation often became Rome's fiercest fighters, driven by a desperate, suicidal need to wash away the stigma of their shame. It was a dehumanizing system that broke the bonds of brotherhood to ensure absolute obedience to the state. In the Roman military, the lottery of death ensured that every soldier was both a victim and a murderer, bound to the empire by the blood of his own comrades. For individual military failures, such as falling asleep on guard duty or losing a weapon in battle, Rome utilized the fustuarium. The condemned soldier would be stood before his assembled legion. The commanding tribune would lightly touch the man with a cudgel, a ceremonial signal. Instantly, every soldier in the unit would fall upon him with clubs and stones. Unlike decimation, which was a lottery, the fustuarium was a focused vent for the unit's collective anger. Polybius described the aftermath. Even those who managed to break through the line and run were never truly safe. They were legally dead. They could never return home, and no family member would dare give them shelter. The public nature of the killing made the entire legion complicit in the execution, ensuring that the fear of their own messmates was a more powerful motivator than the fear of a barbarian's blade. Rome eventually realized that executions could be more than just warnings, they could be entertainment. Damnatio ad Bestias, or condemnation to the beasts, transformed the killing of criminals into a high-budget theatrical production. Underneath the Colosseum floor lay the Hypogeum, a complex network of tunnels and elevators that allowed lions, tigers, and bears to emerge magically through trapdoors. These executions were often staged as mythological plays. A criminal might be dressed as Orpheus and given a lyre, told that his music might soothe the beasts. For a moment, the crowd would go silent as the animals circled. Then a bear would be goaded with hot irons until it tore the musician limb from limb. The poet Martial witnessed such spectacles and praised them. claiming that, in the arena, the fables of the gods became the bloody reality of Rome. During the games of Emperor Trajan in 107 AD, 11,000 animals were slaughtered alongside thousands of criminals over 123 days. Lions were kept in darkness and starved to ensure a frenzy the moment they hit the light of the arena. The crowd would place bets on which limb would be torn off first, while vendors